achieved.
Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. And on this episode of the show, we're taking a look at the upcoming back-to-back cards, which will take place on December... I believe it's the first one is Friday, the Ultimate Fighter 20 finale, which will take place on Friday, December 12th, and then UFC on Fox 13 goes down on the 13th. I'll be giving you predictions for 7 fights. The way I'm looking at it here, I'm giving you 3 main card fight predictions for the upcoming TUF event and the 4 main card fight events, 4 main card fight predictions for the UFC on Fox event. I don't know as of talking who the main event is going to be for the Ultimate Fighter finale because the final show of the episode of the reality show has not taken place yet. I'm assuming that fight, along with the quote-unquote bronze medal matchup, will be the 2 fights that get added to the main card. If you don't want to hear my potential spoiler, mute me for a couple seconds. Okay, go ahead. Based on what I've seen, some of the interviews I've seen take place, and some of the things, I'm thinking it's going to be Rose against Carla in the final. But again, we have been proven wrong before. We have also seen times where they try and keep it a secret, but there's just too many things giving it away. I saw those 2 at the fights; they seem prime, ready to go. Like just a number of things. I had a couple interviews with them where they focus on them primarily. Either way, I'm looking forward to Wednesday night and looking forward to the card. Before I get into all of my predictions, I just want to quickly look at the last show. I went 7-4 overall. I did predict Robbie Lawler to pull off the upset. My bet pack produced about $1,400 in winnings, which is respectable. It wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. It certainly is respectable. My value bets, I hit 3 of 5 with Robbie Lawler, Josh Saman, and Uriah Faber by submission, all cashing in. I went 7-4 overall. I lost the opening 3 fights of the night and won 7 of the final 8 fights. And I was criticized by some people. I can't remember the real Ricky Ross or the heck his name is. I don't even know if he'll be listening to this because I'm pretty sure I banned him from my channel after the things he wrote on my website. Criticized me for my picks, claiming in the bet pack that I predicted one set of fighters and then told everybody to play on the other set, which I never did. The only person I actually suggested a small counter bet on was Anthony Hamilton, simply because if Todd Duffy was complicated by his illness, he was potentially vulnerable there in the long layoff, but it turned out not to be the case. Nonetheless, he made all these claims and criticized and guys have criticized my picking ability, or at least the fact that I hide behind favorite wins. If you look at my last fight, of the 11 fights in the card, I picked 4 upsets, 2 of which I hit, and a 5th pick by the time it was all said and done. The opening fight of the night, Clay Collard versus Alex White, was a pick'em fight, which I took White and lost. So honestly, almost 50% of the fights I was either against, picking the underdog or picking a guy who was even. So certainly not hiding behind favorites. Yes, I won 2 of those upsets, and of the 4 fights I lost, I only had 1 favorite that lost the fight. So what I'm trying to say there is I'm doing my best to pick appropriate underdogs. Obviously, they don't always cash in, as was the case with Gilbert Melendez and Matt Hobar. But nonetheless, I don't see where they get off criticizing me for my predictions. And if you don't want to listen to me and don't like my picks, go somewhere else. And as I've found out you can do with my website on the YouTube channel, if people continually criticize me, I will just ban them altogether because I take my time to do this and put my effort into this. And yes, I have bad nights. So does everyone else. Sometimes I have good nights. We'll see what we can do, with making more good nights than bad nights. But either way, if you want to criticize, that's fine. But do it in a respectful manner. There's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, we had a bad night tonight, or you had a bad night tonight, whatever. But don't do it with foul language and just other detrimental ways of saying things. I don't know what else to say. Obviously, it pissed me off a little bit at the time. Regardless, let's get to the first of 7 fight predictions for all of my listeners who enjoy listening to me. Going chronological, we'll start with the Ultimate Fighter finale matchups. And we're going to start in the UFC's lightweight division as Joe Proctor, 10-2-0, battles similarly recorded Yancy Medeiros, the record of 10 wins, 2 losses, and 1 no contest. Medeiros has looked very good after his first real loss of his career, where he initially was defeated by Rustam Habilov due to a thumb injury, but he's looked very good in his last little bit after getting submitted by Jim Miller. For Joe Proctor, he's coming off kind of a come-from-behind win. He landed a nice counter right, eventually scored a knockout against Justin Salas in a fight that I felt he was losing. I picked Proctor to pull the upset in that matchup. Another upset pick. There you are, folks. Physically very similar, but Medeiros will have a 3-inch reach advantage. Neither guy has a massive experience advantage coming into this matchup. Medeiros with 13 pro fights to 12 for Proctor. Each guy's fought 4 times inside the UFC. 2 Strikeforce bouts for Medeiros there, but for Joe, he also had some, 3 bouts with the Ultimate Fighter live season, which is pretty solid as well. Medeiros has faced better competition, having faced both the Habilov and Miller, and temporarily defeating Eve Edwards before it was overruled due to a no contest. For Proctor, his biggest fight came against Ramsey Nijum. Neither guy has a great wrestling game. You look at their in-ring capabilities, but they're both very capable grapplers. Proctor training under Joe Lozon, 4 wins by submission on his career, +2 on the Ultimate Fighter. All of his 4 pro wins, though, came pre-UFC. He likes the guillotine, so Medeiros will have to watch his neck when he does come in. For Yancy, 2 wins by submission, coming off an impressive reverse bulldog choke over Damon Jackson. He's really working to improve his grappling, but I really think this fight's going to be decided on the feet. Proctor's a very gritty fighter. He really likes to mix it up, which isn't surprising coming out of the from where Joe Lozon comes from. As I said, he knocked out Justin Salas, so he certainly has power in that matchup. He throws more. He has only 2 wins by knockout overall compared to 1 loss. One thing that does concern me, he averages 3.04 strikes landed per minute and gives up that many strikes, so really he's not winning many exchanges as far with his volume overall. For Medeiros, very solid striker, 6 wins by knockout plus the aforementioned KO turn no contest against Yves Edwards will push him to 7 if it would have held up. He gets excellent extension on his strikes to add to what should be a slight reach advantage. He mixes his attacks up very well and uses a lot of nice angles and head movement when he attacks. He has the much better exchange rate. He outlands his opponents on average and Joe Proctor based on his numbers by 1.3 strikes, which over a 15-minute fight, if this fight does go that long, it will certainly add up for him. Medeiros has a pretty good chin as well. His only knockout loss came due to that injury to Rustam Khabilov, so certainly so far it's held up to date. You never know how that could change. I like the way Yancy's the busier of the fighter. I think he'll outwork Proctor, keep him out of range on the outside of those long extended strikes. He has the power advantage. I feel he has the superior technique as well. So my prediction is Yancy Medeiros to defeat Joe Proctor. I'll take Medeiros by knockout. We remain in the lightweight division for a matchup of former Strikeforce competitor KJ Nunes with a record of 12-6-0 against the Detroit superstar Daron Cruickshank, currently holding a record of 16 wins and only 5 defeats. Nunes has always seemed very iffy on his MMA career. He tried the boxing route and came back. He's talked about retirement shortly after joining the UFC, but he's actually won 2 in a row and kind of seems to be getting things going after a very tough start to his octagon career when he fought Donald Cerrone. For Cruickshank, he's been gaining momentum after a bit of a slow start. He went 3-2 overall to get started, which is commendable in the UFC, but one of those wins was a very close and controversial split decision win over Yves Edwards. He has won 3 of his last 4 fights, including 2 KOs, who was only lost to a very competitive and difficult to deal with veteran in Jorge Masvidal. This should be primarily a striking-based fight. Nunes is a boxer, and he also has a karate background, but for Cruickshank, he draws on a variety of styles with a Taekwondo black belt, really supplementing and showing what he is capable of there on the feet with that wide variety of kicking techniques. Both guys have solid power. KJ Nunes 8-1 in fights ended by knockout, and Daron Cruickshank 9-1 in fights ended by knockout. For Nunes, he outlands Cruickshank on an average of about 1 strike per minute, but he also gives up roughly 1 more strike per minute than Cruickshank does, so it's kind of a wash statistically there. Both guys tend to land a lot and give up as equally as much, and what they do there is they rely on the quality of strikes they throw and the impact of their strikes to simply carry the day over their opponents. Nunes tends to rely primarily on his boxing. If he is a superior striker, like he is in a lot of his earlier fights, that gives him a big advantage if he can fight the fight at boxing range. If not, he certainly will have trouble. For Cruickshank, he carries a far wider variety of strikes in his arsenal. He throws a lot of unorthodox and more traditional kicks, which can be a major weapon for him fighting a guy like KJ Nunes who's going to want to get in close. Nunes really had nothing for the Muay Thai-based attack of Donald Cerrone, and he used a lot of kicks, and I expect to see Cruickshank implement something similar here. I have talked in the past about Daron Cruickshank giving up ground and striking battles. He did it against John McDessie, he did it against Yves Edwards, he did it against Adriano Martins before he got submitted. Not so much now. It seems like he's kind of overcome that a little bit. I'm not saying he couldn't go backwards, but certainly from what I've seen recently, he seems to have improved upon that negative tendency. One area, though, that I think is a massive advantage for Cruickshank, besides his striking variety, is the wrestling advantage he's going to have over KJ Nunes. He's a former NCAA Division III wrestler. He's coming off a 6 takedown performance against Anthony Njokuani. He also landed 2 against Masvidal in his loss there, and Masvidal's a pretty tough guy to take down. He has a nice inside trip takedown. I think he's going to force Nunes overall to constantly worry about the takedowns. Even if he can't score them, he's got to be on the defensive. And KJ has a tendency to stand in front of his opponents. He's a bit of a stationary target and allows them to get in, shoot, and look to put him on his back. I remember when I predicted Jorge Masvidal way back in the day to upset KJ Nunes. A lot of it was very similar here. Greater striking technique, wider variety of weapons, and a wrestling advantage, and all played out in that matchup. Nunes does have decent takedown defense, 71%, but Donald Cerrone, Josh Thompson, and Masvidal have combined for 15 takedowns, so that's an average of 5 per fight by those 3 guys. If Cruickshank can even get close to that, that's a huge advantage for him with the scorecards. Nunes is hard to keep down, but still, getting taken off your feet scores points for your opponent. Overall, KJ is 4-5 in fights that go to decision. Darren Cruickshank 6-2. I like what Cruickshank offers, both a wider variety in the feet and a better wrestling game. My prediction is Darren Cruickshank to defeat KJ Noons by decision. We move now to what I'm expecting to be is the co-main event of the Ultimate Fighter finale, as Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens, 23-10-0, battles Charles Do Bronx Oliveira, 18-4-0 with 1-no contest, and this fight is taking place in the featherweight division. Oliveira's coming off back-to-back wins, where Stevens is coming off a different scenario where he suffered the first loss in 4 fights, 145, in a match he took on Cub Swanson, where had he won it, it would have given a big push of Swanson basically to spot in a title eliminator against Frankie Edgar. Cub also actually just fought Oliveira, or not just, but recently fought Charles Oliveira, knocking him out. Both guys have actually both fought Darren Elkins. Oliveira fought him fought and defeated Darren Elkins. Oliveira fought him at lightweight, and both guys fought and lost to Donald Cerrone at lightweight as well. So a number of similar opponents in this matchup. Looking at the scenarios they're currently sitting in now, Stevens needs this win to hold on to his top 10 spot. He's currently ranked 10th, where Oliveira needs a win here because he has struggled when stepping up in competition, and if he's going to have any shot to start climbing the rankings, he is top 15, but if he wants to get into that single-digit ranking category, he needs this victory. Oliveira is a grappling ace with respectable and very capable Muay Thai. For Jeremy Stevens, he's a power striker with significant heat, and he has a respectable wrestling game. So the question is, who can bring to bear their main focus in this fight? Stevens does not want to tangle with Oliveira on the mat. Even from top position, Charles Oliveira is incredibly dangerous from his back. Oliveira, BJJ black belt, 11 wins by submission. All 6 of his UFC wins have come by sub. He's scored 2 in the first, 2 in the second, and 2 submissions in the third round, so very capable at any point, even in the later rounds where fighters are slippery and harder to control. Even more impressive was his modified Anaconda choke victory over Hatsu Aoki, who is an incredibly talented grappler. So that shows you how much of a wizard Oliveira is on the mat. He's very creative, has those really long legs that allow him to attack, aggressive guard with both submissions and sweeps, and the thing is he can throw kicks and a lot of aggressive attacks because he's not worried about being taken down because he is so good on the mat. One thing though, Aoki was having some success out-positioning him on the ground, reversing some positions, and Frankie Edgar survived top control position against Oliveira, but still it's a massive risk for Stevens if he were to look to try and implement his wrestling, or if Oliveira pulls guard and drags the fight to the mat, which is certainly a possibility. Charles doesn't have overwhelming wrestling numbers, but they have been improving of late. 6 takedowns in his last 2 fights, and that's something he's going to try. I would imagine he will try with Jeremy Stevens. Also, Do Bronx will most likely have to exchange on the feet in this matchup before he can score those takedowns, which brings him into Jeremy Stevens' realm of dominance. Oliveira needs to keep this fight at distance until he elects to close in and try and get it to the mat. He will have a 2-inch height advantage. He will have a 3-inch reach advantage, which are big for keeping out of the power. But he needs to use those kicks and elongated strikes to keep Stevens from really getting in and landing the bombs he is capable of. Stevens has real power. 1-punch variety, no question about it. 15 wins by knockout, 5 in the UFC. Only 1 at featherweight where he stopped Honey Jason with an absolutely brutal head kick. When I say 1-punch variety, I mean he has 1 strike, whether it be a punch, kick, knee, elbow, capable of putting guys down. But he needs to avoid headhunting. That's one of the things that's plagued him in the past. His only KO loss of his career came against Eve Edwards, something I predicted. Another upset. Edwards avoided a big winging shot from Stevens and landed a very nice counter strike. Overall, Oliveira is the more diverse striker with a better kicking game. He throws a wider variety of weapons on the feet, but Stevens' power and ability to land is a major concern for the Brazilian, and Oliveira has not fared well against powerful strikers. He has 2 losses by knockout coming against Donald Cerrone and Cub Swanson, and that's something, if Oliveira can back him, if Stevens can back him up, it's going to really limit how effective Oliveira is, and I think, with Stevens' type of power, it can really take a guy off his game once he lands 1 or 2 strikes, no matter how gifted a fighter you are. Stevens is a BJ black belt. Keep that in mind as well. Not on the level of Charles Oliveira on the mat. He has been submitted 3 times. Nothing since 2009 where he was tapped by Joe Lozon. He has greatly improved his wrestling game of late. He took down Cub Swanson twice. He took down Darren Elkins as well, which is pretty impressive. 6 takedowns against Esteban Paya on his debut. And more importantly, he defended all 9 takedowns from a pretty strong wrestler in Elkins and forced Elkins to trade on his feet. This is not, it's not going to be impossible for Oliveira to get this fight to the ground, but I think he's going to struggle to get into position to use his grappling. And while I really like what Charles Oliveira brings to the table with his striking, I like Stevens' power more. Stevens has to avoid headhunting, though, set his strikes up. I think he connects on something. My prediction is Jeremy Stevens to defeat Charles Oliveira by knockout. Before we move on to the UFC Fox predictions, I just want to say the title fight for the Ultimate Fighter finale, along with any other main card fights that get announced, should be just the bronze medal matchup in quotations, which you cannot see. They will be available in the preliminary section, as I need to get this video out before those fights are posted, so please check there. Now we move to the heavyweight division for the first of 4 main card fights on Fox as number 12th ranked former title challenger Gabriel Napao Gonzaga, 16-8-0. Battles number 14th ranked 8-3-0 Matt Mitrione. Now, Gonzaga's coming off a decision defeat almost 11 months since he's competed, so a little bit of a layoff. Was preceded by 2 knockout wins and a certain resurgence in his career in the UFC since retiring. He stopped Dave Herman and Sean Jordan in pretty nifty and pretty quick fashion. For Mitrione, he's got back-to-back KO wins, stopping Derek Lewis in 41 seconds and then KOing Sean Jordan with just a single second left on the clock in the opening round. Both guys have a couple common opponents, Brendan Schaub and Sean Jordan. Both guys KO'd Sean Jordan, and both guys lost to Brendan Schaub, Gonzaga by decision, and Mitrione recently by submission. For Mitrione, 1-inch height advantage, 1-inch reach advantage. He will have about 15 to 20 pounds overall in weight, because with heavyweights it's hard to tell, but that's usually where he comes in. Gonzaga wants this fight in the ground, though. That's what we're going to look at here. Gonzaga wants this fight in the ground, and Mitrione wants it contested on the feet. So very different approaches in this fight. Comparing the other two in their areas, their secondary areas, Gonzaga is much more capable of striking with Matt Mitrione than Matt Mitrione is of grappling with Gabe on the mat. Cardio advantage favors Mitrione significantly. We'll talk about that momentarily, so that's a big up there. Overall, Gabe is 1-4 in UFC fights that go beyond the first round, with his only win coming a minute into the second round against a very gassed Ben Rothwell. So that's something to take note of here. Gabriel Gonzaga, what he's capable of, he's a very good grappler. BJJ black belt, 9 wins by submission, 5 in the first round. He averages 3.01 takedowns at 45%, which is key if he's a great grappler, but he can also get the fight where he wants it. For Mitrione, his last loss came by submission against Brendan Schaub. This defensive grappling has been questioned a little bit, but he has defended 57% of his opponent's takedown attempts. Speed and movement, though, make him very tough to for an opponent to get their hands on him. I expect Gabe will most likely come out shooting and look to take him down as quickly as possible. And the key for Matt Mitrione will defend that if he gets put on his back, he's in a world of hurt with a big man like Gonzaga on top of him. Now, on the feet, Gonzaga has 7 wins by knockout, which is darn impressive, but that number is overshadowed by 6 losses by knockout. So basically, when he's standing and exchanging with opponents, it's almost 50-50 whether he'll get the finish or he will get finished. For Mitrione, he's 7-1 in fights ended by knockout, including 5 straight wins by knockout overall. For Matty, he outlands Gabe on average by about 1.5 strikes per minute, and Gabe gives up about 0.65 more strikes per minute as well. So both numbers favoring Matt Mitrione there. Mitrione certainly has power in his hands, but more importantly, he's the more diverse striker. He has some very hard leg kicks which he can use effectively, but he'll need to be careful not to throw them and leave him out there where Gabe can grab him and take him down. If Gabe can get it on the mat early, he could very well score the submission win, but his cardio is a major question mark, and as I've already talked about, so is his chin. Miocic wasn't able to stop Gabriel Gonzaga, but he showed all you have to do is avoid the early takedowns, and Gabriel Gonzaga will slow down to the point where he's very ineffective overall. I think Mitrione's going to keep Gonzaga moving back early, force him to work hard, wear him out. I think he'll outpoint. He could land a big one-punch shot at the beginning, but he has to avoid getting taken down. Either way, I think Mitrione, either through attrition or through just brute force early on, picks up the victory. So my prediction is Matt Mitrione to defeat Gabriel Gonzaga by knockout. We remain with the heavyweights. Number 11th ranked Alistair Overeem, former Strikeforce and Dream heavyweight champion, 37-14-0 with 1 no contest. Battles number 15th ranked Stefan Skyscraper Struve with a record of 29 wins and 6 losses. Now this is a big fight for both men. Overeem has lost 3 of his last 4 by knockout. All is the favorite, though, and that's certainly concerning. For Struve, he's returning from a heart ailment. His last quote-unquote return was supposed to take place against Matt Mitrione. He was pulled off due to a fainting spell backstage, pulled out of that fight. Certainly he wants to show that he can get in here and compete, and his issues are behind him. Both men are exceptionally big, but certainly in different ways. Struve will have a 7-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage in this fight, but Overeem, he'll have about 20 to 25 pounds on Struve when they lock up, which is pretty darn significant, especially using that lower stature for leverage. Both guys have significant knockout numbers, both for and against, so most likely the judges can take a bathroom break in this fight. I don't think we're going to the scorecards here. Overeem, 15 wins by knockout and 9 losses, including 5 straight losses by KO overall. For Stefan Struve, he has 7 wins by KO, and also he's been knocked out 5 times, and 5 of his last 6 losses have come by KO. His last win was a TKO win over main eventer Stipe Miocic, which shows you where he was headed until he got knocked out by Mark Hunt. He was certainly rising up the ranks, and then, of course, the ailment and the time off, and here he is. I reiterate, this fight is not going the distance based on those numbers, though. Surprisingly, actually, both guys have bigger submission numbers than knockout totals, though. Overeem 19-2 in fights ended by submission. Stefan Struve 16-1, so very interesting numbers there as well. Overeem, though, his last submission win came in 2009 over James Thompson. For Struve, though, it was his 2012 submission of LeVar Johnson, which a couple years ago, but only 2 fights ago for Stefan. Struve is overall more technical on the mat, capable of pulling off sweeps, but Overeem is very strong. He's going to be hard to do anything against if this fight does go to the mat, which I don't think it will unless it follows a knockdown. The chin on both men kind of makes this fight a crapshoot. Struve, we haven't seen as many big knockouts of late as we saw earlier in his career, but still, the big issue is that, either one could get clipped with a shot and the fight's over and all prediction and analysis just goes out the window. Struve has that massive reach. He doesn't use it that well. He allows his opponents to get on the inside, and he's a very slow starter too, which is a major concern against Overeem, who tends to be a very quick starter. When Pat Barry fought him, he landed very effectively in the first round. I felt he won the first round. Stipe Miocic outlanded him 33-20 in the opening round, won that round. Dave Herman outlanded him 37-16 in the opening round and won that matchup, or won that round before Struve got back and got things going again. He cannot afford to let Alistair Overeem get off to a good start, because if Overeem lands that total of strikes, most likely Stefan will be looking at things from his back. Overeem, you look how he's done recently, despite the 3 losses. He looked very good against Travis Brown before he gassed out trying to finish. He dominated Frank Mir in the striking exchanges, despite not being able to finish him in that matchup. He was looking good against Ben Rothwell until Ben Rothwell caught him with a strike and put him down. He could look very good, up until Struve catches him and knocks him out either, but that's, what we're dealing with it's a crapshoot. Struve, though, he's too much of a wild card. He's been out of action for 21 months, and he has that heart condition. He has coming off a broken jaw in his last fight, where a lot of people suggest maybe even though he's young, he needs to take a step away from the division with the hardest hitters on the planet. Overeem, for my money, is too strong in the clinch. He's going to close the distance and tie up, which will make the long lives of Struve a little bit of a detriment, unless he can lock up a submission, which is a possibility. But again, I would not suggest pulling guard against a guy like Overeem, who can just drop bombs. I think Alistair will overpower him, land those big knees in close, really put a beating on him. I don't think Stefan Struve can survive the type of flurry like Travis Brown did and rally back. Here we go again. My prediction is Alistair Overeem to defeat Stefan Struve by knockout. We are now in the co-main event of the Fox card. Is number 3 ranked lightweight on the planet, Rafael dos Anjos, 22-7-0, battles former title challenger and the returning number 14th ranked Nathan Diaz with a record of 18 wins and 9 defeats. For the way I look, it's kind of an odd pairing of fighters considering where they're at in their careers right now. Nate hasn't fought in 13 months. He is coming off a win over a very dismal and slumping Gray Maynard. Prior to that, he was dominated in his 2 previous fights. He's been very boisterous and upset with the UFC over his contract. Now he's made comments about the new uniform situation, and he's not afraid to show his displeasure. And, this is a tough matchup for him if he's trying to improve his contract, but we'll get to that in a moment. For Rafael dos Anjos, he's coming off back-to-back impressive KO victories, including a first-round knockout of former champion Benson Henderson, who just dominated Nathan Diaz in his title shot. For dos Anjos, only 1 loss in his last 7, coming against the guy ranked slightly ahead of him, Khabib Nurmagomedov. So certainly noteworthy there. Looking at these 2 guys, what they do well. Nate Diaz, what he does well, he's a volume striker. 4.13 strikes landed per minute. He's a southpaw, which is a certain advantage as well. He'll have a 6-inch reach advantage in this fight. Tends to, his knockouts seem to come by death by accumulation. He just keeps beating on guys so they have to relent and they can't take anymore. He has excellent cardio, which allows him to do that, and throws the pressure on his opponents. He's a BJ black belt as well, 11 wins by submission. What does Nate not do well? He has trouble dealing with heavy top position wrestlers. 45% takedown defense. Henderson took him down 8 times. Rory McDonald at welterweight took him down 7 times. Offensively, his wrestling's not that strong either. 1.38 takedowns at 30%. He's the type of guy who wants to stand and bang and takes offense if guys try and tie up with him and take him to the mat, and certainly seemed out of his depth against Benson Henderson on the mat. What does Dos Anjos do well? He's got a vastly improved Muay Thai game. That's the reason he's risen through the ranks of late. Power certainly seems to be improving. Back-to-back knockout wins. He's a BJ black belt with 8 submissions overall, and his wrestling's improved. 2.3 takedowns is what he averages per fight. Pretty solid wrestling game. What does he not do well? He can be beat by strong top position wrestlers. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. because that's not Nate Diaz's style. He also will slow down if pushed, which we saw in the Evan Dunham fight. He's not gassed out by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly his performance will drop off a little bit in grueling fights. For Nate, how does he win this matchup? He has to move forward continually, land those volume strikes, keep putting it on him, stick RDA at the end of his combinations, at the end of his reach, and keep him backing up, which will shut down his wrestling game and his kicking game. Test his cardio. Hurt him early and keep coming and do not stop until either the ref pulls you off or till the final bell goes. For Dos Anjos, he has to simply be the more diverse fighter. Use that kicking game, which we've seen him utilize a lot lately. Keep Diaz out of boxing range. Most of all, though, grind Nate Diaz into the ground with that wrestling game, similar to how he beat Donald Cerrone. How Rafael Dos Anjos beat Donald Cerrone. This is a very tough fight for Nate Diaz. If he doesn't get off to a good fast start and possibly hurt Rafael Dos Anjos, he's going to be up against it, and most likely up against it. The Eddie's up against is going to be the floor in this matchup. Dos Anjos needs to build on that blueprint of what others have done in the past, use his wrestling, continue to improve, and continue to use that improved striking, but really focus on his wrestling in this matchup. My prediction is Rafael Dos Anjos to defeat Nate Diaz by decision. We are now in the main event of the Fox card. It's a 5-round heavyweight matchup as the former champion and title challenger, number 2 ranked junior Sagano dos Santos, 16-3-0, battles the number 4 ranked Stipe Miocic with a record of 12 wins and just a single defeat. For junior, it's a 12-month layoff coming into this fight. For Stipe, he's got 2 wins in that same span since junior last fought. This is most definitely a title eliminator matchup. The winner could very well face either Kane or Fabricio Verdum, or if Verdum, can't, the winner of Kane Verdum, if Kane cannot fight and Verdum is asked to defend his interim title or Kane is stripped, obviously Fabricio Verdum could very well take on the winner of this matchup. The way I look at it, Junior Dos Santos versus Cain Velasquez number 4, way too soon. If that fight ever happens again, way too soon, even if, Junior wipes the floor with Stipe in this matchup. Verdum versus Junior Dos Santos 2 certainly makes more sense, considering the person they fought was very early in Junior Dos Santos' career, and Verdum was at another, a very different state in his capabilities back then. If that fight happens either for the title or if Verdum loses to Kane, that fight could happen as well. But the best scenario for the division and the promotion is certainly Stipe winning this matchup and getting a title shot as the next title contender. Post-title shot letdown could be a major issue for Junior here. He's now lost 2 title fights involving Cain Velasquez. After the first loss, he was 1-1 and knew he most likely was headed towards a rematch with a win or 2. He was still in the hunt. Now he's in limbo. He's lost twice to the champion, both times in dominant drubbing fashion. He may be thinking, even if I win this fight, I got 3 or 4 more tough fights ahead of me before I get back to another shot at the champion if Kane does hold on to that belt. Physically, both guys 6'4", 3-inch reach advantage for Stipe, roughly the same weight, so pretty close physically in this fight. For Junior Santos, he's a striker with a BJJ black belt. For Stipe, he's a striker with an NCAA Division I wrestling background. So both guys, very good strikers, also capable grapplers. Both guys have massive power. Junior, 12 wins by knockout, 7 in the UFC. Stipe, 3 wins by knockout, 3 inside the octagon. For Junior, that power comes mainly in his right hand, but we've seen him do other things. He dropped Mark Hunt early on in the first round of that match with a big shot. He's landed, he has to use his jab to the body to set that up and make it more effective. What he does very nice, though, is he stays out of range a little bit, and then he can close quickly with that speed, step into a strike, makes it more impactful, makes it harder to register with his opponent and defend. But he needs to be careful on the counter. He tends to hold his left hand when he's throwing with his right, hold his left hand a little bit low, and he needs to avoid looking for that home run shot. Keep that left jab popping both to the body and the chin. Do not load up on your strikes, and do not always, try and go for the knockout every time. When he fought Hunt, though, he was getting clipped with a nice counter left. Not a ton of low kicks, though, something he needs to use as well. He did land that wheel kick finish to Hunt, which was pretty darn impressive, but nonetheless, you gotta mix up your attack and do the little things right on top of landing those big knockouts. For Miocic, he uses a much shorter, crisper boxing technique, less wind-up, moves in and out, covers distance exceptionally well, and really throws nice 1-2-3 combinations, where with Junior it tends to be jab, power, jab, power. He's very fleet. Stipe's very fleet of foot, moves very well when he's attacking, so he's not in the same place. Movement and countering was his key to short-circuiting the big power punching of Roy Nelson. He's exceptional. Very quick, good power, excellent head movement. He moves his head off center a lot, which can make him very difficult to attack. And even when opponents attack, he's able to get out of the way very quickly. He's exceptionally athletic, which is something that I think could play a role here. And I like, though, even in the Stefan Struve fight where he eventually got knocked out, he's very calm under pressure. And he, even when he gets hurt in the Shane Del Rosario fight, when he was getting hurt to the body, he stayed very calm and eventually figured out how he was going to win that fight. So that's a key here. When he fought Nelson, he showed his power. He hurt Nelson badly. He can land some nice elbows and knee strikes in close. He landed some solid body shots against Stefan Struve. And overall, he showed a continued improvement over his last couple of bouts. As I mentioned, the kicks of Del Rosario, may he rest in peace, were hurting him exceptionally, and that's something, he can be hurt. He was also hurt with a big uppercut and a follow-up flurry by Stefan Struve, who eventually stopped him. So certainly if Junior can land that big shot, Miocic is capable of being finished, whereas Junior has absorbed a lot more punishment before going down against Cain Velasquez. The wrestling of Stipe, 2.13 takedowns at 42% versus Junior's 76% takedown defense. Those are some big exchange numbers there. Junior's takedown defense would be much higher if it weren't for the 13 takedowns he suffered over the last 2 fights against Velasquez. Overall, though, other than Cain, no one has had consistent success taking Junior off his feet. Even Cain struggled early on in that matchup, but he was able to wear him down, and that was the key to his success. For Stipe, he changed that fight against Del Rosario with his wrestling. He was able to change levels for a nice body lock takedown, also landed a nice single, and eventually put it away. He has postures up very well on the ground, tosses aside the legs, and can really move into a dominant position and land ground and pound. And he has some brutal elbows, which he can bring about the end of a fight with fairly quickly. For Junior, his other opponents overall have lacked that speed, athleticism, striking, wrestling, and size combination of Stipe Miocic. That's something. He brings a total package into this fight that Junior has not dealt with before. He's fought guys with power. He's fought guys that are athletic, but or good strikers or decent wrestling. But this is a massive combination of all of those things in Stipe Miocic. And another thing to keep in consider: all guys that have fought Junior overall, he wasn't able to beat with the early KO, where guys like Mark Hunt, Roy Nelson, and Shane Carwin all had inferior cardio that allowed him to go the distance or go deeper into matchups where he was the better fighter. For Stipe, he needs to use his wrestling to wear Junior down. Make him work. Don't get discouraged if it doesn't land early. Keep pushing him. Force him to try and defend those takedowns. Use those short, crisper strikes, similar to what he did against Roy Nelson, to catch Junior as he's coming in looking for those big shots. He has to watch that big overhand right. He has to use a lot of movement. Junior's big layoff and, of course, the title fight letdown are all significant factors here. He has the experience in 5 rounds. I'm going to go with a little bit of a wild card here. I think Stipe Miocic is able to outpoint him, outwork him, and my prediction is Stipe Miocic to pull off the upset and defeat Junior Dos Santos. I'm going to take him by decision. So those are my 7 fight predictions for the 2 upcoming events. We've got the Ultimate Fighter 20 finale, which will take place on Friday. On Saturday, the UFC on Fox 13 event. My preliminary predictions and the 2 remaining main card fights that haven't been announced for the finale will be posted at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I'm going to do my best to get my bet packs posted. I will probably, it's hard to tell what I'm going to do with time-wise, as I haven't started my preliminary predictions, and I'm recording this, it's Monday night. So I might focus my bet packs on the UFC on Fox card, but certainly I will do my best to break down every single fight for you, as I always do. My preliminary predictions will probably be very brief and very much to the point. Either way, as always, thank you very much for listening and commenting, and keep things tasteful as much as possible. I do know when I screwed up, but please, let's try and be intelligent individuals out there. Enjoy the fights as always, guys, and I think we have one more show before Christmas. Either way, happy holidays and take care. Merry Christmas as well.